Okay, hello everyone. I'm back with yet another podcast episode of Nioh 2 or Nioh series, and this is podcast episode number 8. And my today guest is Roose. You probably know him. He's yet another great friend of mine and a very good Nioh player. So welcome on in, Roose. How are you doing today?
Too kind. You're too kind. I'm no good at that game.
Yes, you are.
I'm doing
So.
great, man. Thanks for having me on.
Mhm.
I feel honored to be slotted as a good Neo player after the likes of Spawn and Gucci and BSG. I'm nowhere at you guys' level, so you give me way too much credit.
Nah, 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 nah. You are one of the really, really good players and people who've been playing that game for a long time, and someone who also did a lot of testing back then on when Neo 2 was released on Discord, help this community and streaming this game and sharing the love. So tell me, yeah, I was like asking these questions. I mean, I do ask everybody this question. So, what does keep you playing Neo? Why do you like Neo? And how did you fell in love with it? Tell us your story.
Yeah. So my story is, I mean, I don't know. I don't want to say it's like predictable, but it seems to me like it's pretty common. I uh did not play Neo 1 at release. I didn't play Neo 1 until after I played Neo 2. And then I didn't play Neo 2 until like right before DLC 3 was released. So I had never played Team Ninja games. Like I still don't have a Ninja Gaiden under my belt. But I
Neither
was
I
just
do.
yeah, I'm
Believe
not
me.
sure I want to have a Ninja Gaiden under my belt, honestly, but
No,
it
you
is what it
don't. Nah,
is.
like, okay, I mean
um,
that's a great game. Sorry for
yeah.
interrupting, but that's a great game. And I know a lot of people who actually started with that game. Kage Rasimaru, I think also was Gucci was one of them, and I know many other people, even the Spawn himself. But man, I just cannot. Like for me, that game is too much. Oh, Master Ninja Ryu is also yet another Ninja Gaiden player. I just cannot. And then you don't need to have that under your belt too.
Yeah.
So, but it's
Yeah.
all good. Go ahead.
So yeah, just giving you my my lack of credentials here, but yeah, so like right before DLC 3 was released is when I played Neo 2, and I played it because I was like most people at that time waiting for Cyberpunk to come out.
Mhm,
And I mostly had played well, I was a fan of Souls games at that
mhm.
point, and I really did not like I never watched Twitch. I never watched anyone stream games. Um, and when I started playing Souls games, like so many people do, the only content creator I watched was Fighting Cowboy. I watched his walkthroughs and his builds for Souls games, and I dig it. I liked it. But in terms of like interacting with a community of gamers, that was about it. I didn't do anything. I just watched that dude's videos and I played Souls games. And I was waiting for Cyberpunk to come out, and I was like, man, I want to play a Souls game. Okay, let me put that in quotes because Neo is not a Souls game. We all
Yeah,
know this.
yeah.
I didn't know that back then, right? But I was like, well, okay, what's like a good Souls game to play that's going to be like challenging, fun combat? And Fighting Cowboy claimed to love Neo too, so I picked it up, and like it just sunk its hooks in me like super deep, like right from the get go. It was a super frustrating game. Like I remember like playing the game for the first time, and I was trying to make the control scheme like a Souls game control scheme. Like I was trying to make, light attack R1 and heavy attack
Yeah.
R2. What a just idiotic thing to think. Like I can't conceive of a better control scheme than like the Neo games. It's just so good. I love it so much. But
Mhm.
anyway, that's how I came to the game, and I probably like my first playthrough, like Dream of the Samurai probably took me like 400 hours. Um,
Wow. That's a
yeah,
lot.
I was just like, yeah, because I was playing it like a Souls game. I was like, oh my God, Yatsuno Kami, I can't beat this guy. I'm just gonna farm. I'm just gonna farm levels
Mhm.
so I can beat this. That's what you do in a Souls game when
Yeah,
you
yeah,
get a
yeah.
tough boss, unless you're playing Sekiro, you farm levels so you can beat him. No, no, no. It doesn't work that way. Like I just had to get good. I just had to like learn the boss and overcome it.
Mhm,
But that's what I would do. I just had that kind of mindset about the game. Like I exclusively played in mid stance. I did not use low stance at all. Sometimes I'd switch to high if I wanted to do like, a certain active skill in high stance, but I pretty much played the game like a Souls game. 400 hours. I finished it, and then I started playing Dream of the Strong, and I got into Dream of the Demon, and I stopped. And I think at that point, like Cyberpunk came out, and it was disappointing upon release, as we all know. And I think once I finished the game, I just kept thinking about Neo. I was like, man, I want to go back to Neo, but I was pretty intimidated because I knew
mhm.
like, these Dream of the Wise and Dream of the Neo, man, this is going to be really hard. But I eventually got the courage basically to return to the game. And when I did, yeah, it did. It took courage on my part, right? Because I knew at that point, like, if I encountered a difficulty, it was just I have to get good. I have to learn the mechanics of the game. I can't just go farm levels and just overpower the boss.
Yeah, that's true.
Um, but
That's true.
I returned to it, and that's when I was like, I need to watch other people play this game.
Mhm,
I need to watch good players.
mhm,
And like so many new Neo players, Poofer is the first guy. He was the
mhm,
most visible content creator
mhm.
for Neo.
Yep.
So I was like like when Poofer was still streaming on Twitch, dedicated I think he was streaming like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, something like that. But
Mhm.
I was just watching him every day. And I have to give Poofer the credit he deserves. Like he taught me how to look at the game differently.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely. He does. Yeah,
and
I remember. Yeah, that was one of the days. I remember also when I met Poofer back then in the days. He was actually playing here by spamming Flowing Shadow, and then like
yeah,
back then in the days. And I mean, he changed actually, and he showcased a lot of people. And then you're right. He was most visible among all of us. And actually, at least I'm happy that somebody from our community was, because everything else that you could
right,
find there on internet or Twitch or YouTube, it wasn't anything spectacular. Just one shot blender, blah blah builds, like
right, right.
nothing that showcase that
I
game
mean,
is good. I mean, okay,
what?
one of the
Like,
I can say sorry, big
no,
channels
no,
was XL Edge, but he actually, again, his channel is not that big as the many other people you could see there. Like many people just play that game and then finish it. GBG played it a little bit, did some great combos, all that stuff. But actually, I think he dropped and moved on to the next game, and not many people stayed and keep up with that game, especially not making the guides or deep
right, right.
explanations on how things should work and whether what work or not, and stuff like that.
Yeah, like I don't even remember the dude's name. The dude that steals people's builds
Ah,
and
that's
like
the let's not mention it here, but yeah,
whatever.
there
I
was a
can't
guy who
remember
did
his
that. Yeah.
name. But I won't make you mention. But anyway, it was like that's the content I was seeing when I was going
Yeah,
onto YouTube was that dude's
unfortunately,
videos,
unfortunately.
right? And again, like I watched Poofer and he like there was just a sea change
Hmm.
in my like mindset
Hmm.
about how this game is to be played. And also it was Poofer and his streams and the people who'd show up that like all these people that I have connections with now,
Hmm.
friendships, like you, Spawn, BSG, these were people that I met like either, through watching Poofer's streams, and then, I started showing up to your streams. And then
Hmm.
eventually I started showing up to Spawn streams. But anyway, that was the first time in my life that I ever watched anyone stream games. And I just learned a lot from it. And I just dedicated myself to like, I want to play like these guys do. I want to play like Zelot does. I want to play like Poofer does. I want to play like
Yeah,
Spawn
yeah.
does and BSG. Like
That's
They were
how
just
it
like,
starts. Yeah.
"Hey, what weapon do you want me to use? Like, do you want me to use katana hatchets? Okay, I'll use katana hatchets." And I was like, "Holy shit, man, I can't do that. Like, I can use odachi and fists. Like, that was it.
Yeah.
Those were my weapons, right?" So I just like dedicated myself. I want to use all the weapons, and at that point, I probably had maybe 550 hours in the game, and today I have close to 3,000 hours in the game, and it was just learning the nuances, the mechanics, learning all of the weapons, coming to appreciate that Neo 2 um, has an incredible enemy variety. Like the enemies are
Oh.
incredibly fun. The yokai enemies are incredibly fun. And also just I think like the general division of just like yokai and human enemies and how they have like their own principles by which they work, and you have to learn those principles specifically about their ki.
Mhm.
Um, like it's all that stuff that just kept me coming back. And now I have almost 3,000. I may have actually crossed the 3,000 hour mark
Yeah.
just
Yeah. That's a
recently
lot.
because I bought Neo 2 on the PC. I played a PS4, PS5 exclusively. And I just did like from scratch a whole playthrough with cheat engine this time.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I made
hey,
a weapons, level one weapons. Like
hey,
whenever
yeah, let
people
there be
ask,
statement.
yeah, I mean that's fine.
Um,
I mean, you didn't
Yeah,
use the
yeah, I
cheat
mean, it's
engine
fun,
to
like,
cheat out the
cheat engine
game.
is fun.
I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah,
like,
I didn't have to farm anything. The worst part of the game was
yeah,
gone.
yeah, yeah.
But
You're
yeah,
right.
I like 200, maybe even close to 300 hours on that playthrough.
Yeah,
Um, it's just like I just recently did it again. Like,
yeah.
so
I
I
mean,
may have crossed the 3,000 hour mark, and it's just really a testament to this game. Like I am not a gamer who sinks that amount of hours in a single game. I've never done that. Like I play a Souls game, it's like 50 hours, and then maybe I do one new game plus I'm done. I'm
yeah,
done with the game. That's the way I've played games for 30 years. I'm 40 years old now. Neo 2 is the first game that just kept calling me back. There's something special about this game, and it's, you know, my number one game of all time, like hands down by far, no competition.
yeah. That's true. I mean, when I always remember people get to my stream. Oh, you playing level one weapons? How did you get them? I mean, I tell them, okay, somebody made that on PlayStation 5. Drop it to somebody, then you can drop it and farm it, and that takes edges.
Yep.
And I said like I'm not gonna do that. And on PC, of course, using cheat engine, I could actually downgrade weapons. And I did that. Okay, I just found weapons and I downgrade them and I made them so I have a lot of level one weapons. Actually, all of them, like purely corruption. Each type of weapon, and then I use them to play because I like to play that way. It's giving me a lot of fun, especially for example, another thing, skill expansion pack. You cannot use it if you don't use cheat engine. I mean, cheat engine, it's kind
Mm.
of stupid name, but that's a software that allowing you to actually edit game files, and somebody who's experienced with it, he can actually create stuff and change skills or adjust stuff, or even like make some cool stuff. I've actually seen recently on Discord that somebody was actually playing and adding some skills on a split staff from the Wukong Black Meat, and it was actually quite fun.
Oh,
And
nice.
I like to see that. So I mean, a lot of these mods are kind of the same thing because you just put the mod in a game where somebody has actually worked on something and so on and so on. So which is pretty cool. And I actually this is also another thing that can help the developers to see or create something new. So basically, that is basically free work for them. So just
Yeah.
they take a look at that. So when it's get to the
And
okay
and
Neo,
let me say one more
yeah,
thing. Let me
yeah,
say one more thing about why I like Neo 2 so much. The community around this game was always like, even when I was a noob and I didn't know anything and I was still using,
mhm,
familiars and sloth to try to take down the depths. Like this community really, really helped me. I would go to the Discord, I would ask for help. There would be people who would help me, and everyone was pretty welcoming. I never once was I ever shamed for like being bad at the game
I
or
mean that's
just not knowing something. It was always about sharing knowledge, sharing information, being willing to help. And it was a very welcoming community. And I think, you know, in addition to just how amazing the game is, the community kept me in the game kept me playing for as long as it has.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, I could say so the same way because I remember the day when I just decide. I was actually thinking and talking to the others. We should make a near Discord. We should make a near Discord, and then it was just we've been kept in that on talk. And then one day I just said, okay, fuck this. I'm just making Discord. And then I made a Discord and then invite few people who actually crucial that we spoke about it.
Yeah,
And then that's how all this started. And I said, let's go. I mean, I want to I really I don't like other community that I've seen. There was nothing useful, and I just wanted to, have, I would say, our own community where we would be there. And then yeah, I could say so that it's quite cool, quite chill. People are kind, nice, welcoming, and it's actually not. I would say it's not a shame to not know something. I mean, everybody, we
yeah,
all of us has came from somewhere. I remember my first playthrough on Neo, that was mid stance from first mission to the last mission till I met BSG,
yeah,
who just
yeah. Me
randomly
too,
appear on
man.
my stream. BSG get there and says, "Oh, you can switch stances." I said, well, What the fuck stances are? I mean, stances didn't exist before that." And then I started utilizing stances. Then I saw his gameplay. I mean, that's the same thing as you said. Like I saw BSG, for example, how he plays, and through him I got all the connections to the all other people. And then I said, oh, I want to play like this. I mean, this game has a really huge uh, potential, and I want to learn to play on this level like this. And I remember back then in the days that there was I don't know if you remember him, little one ABC. That was another great player back then in the days. He was playing a lot with BSG. That guy did level one weapons, but in Neo one, level one and Neo one are actually quite crazy. They have like, I don't know, 300 attack or so, and he did like all the bosses on Way of the Neo. That was like tedious.
Wow.
And there is his YouTube channel like for people who like to check that. But dude, that was crazy. Like he is also the one of the people who parried Yuki Onna. I mean, that was kind of the glitch because I
Oh,
think it was Yuki Onna. There is Yuki Onna, and there is one more enemy. I think it was either Nobunaga or Samurai. And I think the Samurai or Nobunaga, I'm not sure which enemy was, attacked him and he parried him, but Yuki Onna actually in that moment teleported to him. And then she got into animation and she parried her somehow. It was like, what the fuck,
that
man?
that's crazy.
That's
With
crazy.
katana,
Yeah,
parried her with
no, no, no,
katana.
no. With the
Oh
dual
man.
sword, dual sword strike, dual sword
Oh,
strike.
dual swords. Okay. Okay. Got it. Okay.
That's crazy. I
Still.
think BSG has a clip of that, I believe, somewhere, and that was one of the greatest videos I have ever seen. I was like, wow. Yeah, that's pretty good
Yeah, I
thing.
mean that's another thing that I mean I've really, and it takes a while to get to this point, right? Appreciate like all of the jank in these games. Like
Yeah,
you just like it. Like
yeah,
that you can just randomly parry this yokai boss with dual swords. Like I love finding stuff like that.
yeah. I mean, I remember just talking with BSG, and then BSG get there to me. Oh well, you know what I found out? I said like, what? You can parry. What was the name of that guy from DLC 3? Hold on. There is not DLC 3, DLC 2. Is that the Lightning God of Yomi? And there is that mage guy. What was his name,
Oh,
man?
Ashaya Daman.
Yeah, yeah, Doman. Yeah. So he said, "Oh, I found a way to parry Doman with bare hands." I was like, "Seriously, dude?" And then
With
when
bare
yeah,
hands. Oh
yeah,
my
yeah.
god.
Basically, the thing is, when he pull out that lightning sword, you can parry that lightning sword for some reason. You can parry it with any weapon, with spear, with dual swords, with
That's
katana,
that's
bare hand.
an
Yeah.
Omeo attack.
And what was
That's an
actually
Omeo attack that he's doing.
yeah, that's basically only attack that you can parry, and as you said, and there is also another thing that BSG told me about, which I really didn't have clue about. But Saido Yoshitatsu, when he using dual swords and he does the move something like this, and then he moves his sword or from the left to the right side. When he does that, you can hand parry him, taking his sword and actually parry him. And that was
Oh,
another thing that,
the one where he like zigzags
yeah,
towards you, like
no, no,
where
no, 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 no,
you
no, no,
like
no,
his
not the
sword at him.
Raijin, not the Raijin. There is a sort of the attack that he actually with his right hand he does something like this with dual sword, basically to deflect you or actually something like that, and you can actually parry that move with the bare hands
Oh,
and stab him. And BSG found that out. I was like, dude, like what?
that's crazy.
I mean,
Crazy. Yeah,
that's
man,
crazy. Like,
you love the jank, you love the spaghetti code in these Tim Ninja games, man.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's just insane. I mean, Renegade Dragon Cancel. I remember also that back then in the days when Axel had showcased that video. Like I was like, wow. And then he made that so consistent. It was actually super difficult in Neo One to do. Man, it's still even in Neo 2. It has so tight window, but you can cancel Renegade Dragon. Basically, you just do the first part of the animation, and then when he lands his foot on the ground, you can actually cancel the rest of the part with key pulse. But it was so tight. I mean, you also remember we could actually do the Kusa into Mad Spinner, extended Raijin, and so on. And I mean, so many
Right.
things that I appreciate. We call tech in Neo, and then the dodge
Can you do
cancels.
the extended Raijin in Neo 2? I know the
No,
like I don't know,
in
maybe
Neo
2
One
months
you
back,
can. In Neo
Gucci
One,
showed me it in Neo 1. Okay, it's a
yeah,
Neo 1 thing.
Neo One. So the thing is, we discovered that in Neo Two, and of course that thing works in Neo One. So Kusa
Right.
into Med Spinner works, and also the Raijin extended version of the Raijin works. But in Neo 2, I can say, and I will keep saying that BSG is responsible because they patched that because he was abusing that katana. If you remember when you grapple Yamato no Orochi, when he does that stupid grapple animation, there was a thing that you could do in Neo 2 and get people into that sort of animation. And BSG get into
Interesting.
fuck yeah, and the BSG get into fucking cop, and he was doing that to the people, and then people was complaining. Team Ninja just
So
fixed
you're telling
that.
me BSG ruined the fun for all of us. That's what you're telling me.
Yes, yes, it did. I mean, yeah, that was Kusa into Katana. So yeah, if you pull yourself toward enemy with Kusa, and then take out Katana, that what happens. That what happens. That goddamn anime. I mean, they could fix it the other way, but usually they
Right.
just choose the easiest way to fix it. So it is like it is what it is. Unfortunately. So yeah, but when it get to the enemies and like
Yeah.
weapons, I would say, like, what are your favorite weapons, enemies, and what would you like change on them, or would you like something else to be different? What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, favorite weapons hands down are katana and spear. I love these weapons. Love them. Like, I mean, I don't need anything new, man. Just give me the Neo 1 weapons. That's my go-to. I love katana. It is just it's like it's the weapon that I feel comfortable with against any enemy type in the game,
Hmm.
human or yokai. I just love katana. I mean, I I I'm a sucker for like looping humans with Azuna drop. Like I love doing that. It's so much fun.
Hmm.
But I just love how Katana is like master of none, but just good everywhere. I just love that it's like the Swiss Army knife of the weapons. Like it doesn't have any weak matchups. It's
Hmm.
just always good. It's always reliable. And Spear, it took me a long time to really to learn. That's one of the last weapons that I learned. And Spear is super technical. Like to
Yes.
really utilize that weapon, you've got to take advantage of like pre-shifting and just like knowing how to like I mean in some ways you have to play the weapon in a way that's not how it's designed. Like I don't think the game is designed for you to, oh, here's a weapon and you need to pre-shift, right? That is switchglaive, right? Not spear. Um so like to really take advantage of that weapon, you've got to just like do things that are kind of counterintuitive.
Hmm.
And I just learned to really like that. And I just really like Spears' moveset, like triple threat. Like when I go back and I play Neo 1, the fact that I don't have triple threat is like, God, man, I just can't like I love that move so much. It's such a big part of my rotation when I'm playing Spear. Like not having it in Neo 1 is kind of like a huge drawback. And I don't like Spear as much in that game for that simple fact. But yeah, those are my favorite weapons. Katana and spear, hands down. I do want to like honorable mention um to Odachi because that was the weapon I started the game with. And like now I'm not very good with Odachi. Like I'm fine with Odachi, but I got to give it the honorable mention because it
Yeah.
was Odachi that was a part of my like first 500, like exclusively my first 550, 600 hours of the game was just me, just like high stance Odachi, just like moonlit snow spam.
Yeah, I know, right? I mean, Odachi is nice weapon.
Yeah.
It's actually quite good beginner, beginner weapon. It has nice range, nice damage, nice break, so it's actually quite nice. For me, that was Tonfa and Duel's Force. That's why I still love them most. But when you mentioned Spear, I wanted to add up that in Neo 1, for example, you can go into the wild spear into the strong attack. So basically, you could launch up the wild spear and you could
Mm.
cancel it into the strong attack, which was super useful. And that doesn't work in Neo 2, for example. And
Wow,
then
I did
another
not know that.
another thing in Neo 1, it was easy. I didn't like in Neo 1 that your spear would actually bounce off of the walls. And if you're actually
Oh my
in.
gosh, that
Yeah,
was so terrible.
like if you don't
So
have parry
bad.
disabled, that was horrible. They fixed that in Neo
Yeah.
2, but you don't have
Yes.
parry disabled anymore in Neo 2. And then not
Do
having
you
parry disabled.
remember? I
Yeah.
don't know what the level's called. It's where you fight Okatsu, Poop Castle. That's what I always call it. Like the shit castle in Neo
Ah,
1.
I know.
Um,
I know which one you're talking
yeah.
about.
Like I remember the first time I played that, and I was just like, okay, like I'm just gonna play with like sword and spear in Neo 1. And my God, like the narrow hallways in that level were just, it was a misery. It was just like the only thing I could do was just like mid stance strong attack
Yeah,
sequence. That was the
exactly.
only
Because
thing
that
to
will
get me.
not bounce off.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a
Yeah.
big problem. That was a huge problem, and I'm glad they fixed it in Neo 2. And as I said, I think I spoke. I'm not sure with some of the people from the previous in a previous one of the previous podcasts about spear. In Nier 2, you gotta actually know what moves you can use and what you cannot, because when enemy block, you can get yourself bounce off very easily. You gotta do pre-shift to actually lie, so to say, to the game that you're in a high stance and you're not in a high stance,
Like,
and you gotta use a certain amount of skills because unfortunately, like in comparison to, let's say, Tonfa or some other weapons, if you do not have a lot of skills that starting with L1 square, L1 triangle, and so on, basically if they start with a quick attack that you gotta actually follow up with, let's say, strong attack or something else, if your first attack get bounced off, your whole combo is ruined, and you gotta know very well what are you going to do, especially against human enemies. Now, yokai enemies are not a problem. Human enemies are a big problem because they block, and you gotta know actually how to play with spear. And I would say Poofer was playing a lot with spear, so he was actually back in the days one of the I would say in the community one of the persons that play spear the best, I would say. After that, I pick it up also on Spear, and lately, not mean lately, couple of years, maybe two or so, I've been playing like I'm actually quite decent at this very point with Spear. But back then in the days, like there was all of us had some sort of progress with certain weapons. Like my favorite weapon,
yeah.
Tonfa. I actually committed my and dedicated my time to Tonfa Demon Dance because I love Demon Dance, and I was the person who tried to Demon Dance everything. Everything that exists should be Demon Dance. I mean, Virgi was one of the people who did it as well because it was crazy. Like dodging Mitsunari, Wind Wave. I don't know. Then I've been just getting ideas. Like I'm basically I'm the person or type of player that I watch the other people doing something, and then I get the idea about what I could do and and stuff like that. So basically that's what helps me. Like I was just watching other people picking up the stuff, and then just, oh, okay, this is good. And then in Nia 2, I remember I got idea. Okay, maybe I could try to demon dance. You remember the Oniyudo? I think it's Oniyudo. Oniyudo, that's a big guy with a ton. Yeah, big yoka with a ton. He does that attack where he actually going toward you and actually attacking you, with his hands.
Like
And
it's
actually,
like the sumo wrestling
yeah,
attack
yeah,
where
yeah,
he's
basically. And I said, oh, let's try to demon dance this. And yes, you can dance that, but you cannot demon dance that if you don't have movement speed buff, because movement, like not many people know that,
oh,
obviously.
got it.
Movement speed
It's just
buff
too slow otherwise.
helps you to actually demon dance faster, and because when you demon dance,
Mm.
you slightly moving as well, but you got actually it's actually increasing the speed of your overall action. So it's very important to have that. In Neo 1, you could actually have five, not five, I think three to maybe even five, 3 to 5 movement speed buffs. In E1, you could be actually like in SOP. You could just fly around the
Oh
map.
my
You could
god, yeah.
actually had
Yeah,
eight, 80% of the running speed and just fucking movement speed. I remember Kage and Gucci. These guys was just flying around the map. Like
Dude,
Do
it can be
it.
too much in Neo 1. Like,
Yeah.
I I actually nerfed my own movement speed because I was like, William is just flying everywhere. I'm like losing control of this dude. He's moving so fast. Yeah.
Yeah, that was
That's
crazy.
one thing I'd like to see. I would have liked to have seen in Neo 2 is to find like some kind of like happy middle point between the
Yes.
insane movement speed that you can generate in Neo 1 and like the almost like you can get good movement speed off of, like amino buffs or Kasha
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
in Neo 2, but I would have liked to like maybe get a little faster in Neo 2.
I
Like
agree.
like
I
like
agree.
like running speed, like that stat on gear is pretty much useless, I think, for the most part in Neo 2. I would have liked there to be like this happy medium it found between what we actually got in Neo 2 and what we had in Neo 1 which was just bonkers.
Yeah, pretty much. Also, running speed in Neo 2 and Neo 1. In Neo 1, you could get up to 90%. In Neo 2, you cannot even get, I believe, like 30, 40%. They nerfed it
Yeah.
basically like to the ground. But there was certain boss
Yeah.
that you could stuck up at the beginning, but after that, I think they patched it or changed it. And I think, yeah, it is what it is, unfortunately. So yet another thing that I wanted to ask you is,
Yeah.
out of the all three DLCs that are there, which one is your favorite and why? Neo 2 DLCs. And Neo 1, you can also say Neo 1, then Neo 2.
So I think that this is tough because I really, really like the bosses from DLC 1. Like
Mhm,
Yoshitsune is one of my favorite yokai bosses, and Benki is also one of my favorite yokai
mhm,
bosses. So uh, that's tough. The consideration is that the enemies that the game, just the regular mob enemies
mhm.
that the game introduced in DLC 3 were so good. They're so insanely good. Itsamade, Suiki, On Onyoki,
Fuki.
and then Kinky. I don't really Kinky's not that great, but
Yeah,
like and then
Fuki.
Gigi.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Konekidji.
like man, like those DLC 3 enemies that they introduce are so great. So for me, it's a toss up between 1 and 3 for those considerations. Although I mean, I love me a shooting doji. So the fact that
Yeah.
we got like cracked doji in DLC 2 is
Yeah.
also the
Yeah,
DLCs are
he
they're just
is great
fire, man.
boss.
They are fire. They're so good in this game. They're so good. So yeah, I'd say it's a toss up between 1 and 3.
And in Neo 1, you have first one is Shigezane, second is Sanada, and third one is with Nine Tails, I believe. Like, nobody likes Nine Tails until you told me.
I mean, I think it's DLC 2. Like Sanada is just such a good fight in Neo 1.
Yes.
Although I like Shigezane and Masamune are also excellent. Like I think
Mhm.
Neo 1 does human bosses better than Neo 2.
Yes, you're right.
I think
That,
that's
that's
pretty
that's
much
hundred percent.
I think it's a widespread view. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, like I think Sanada is just such an excellent boss.
Yes.
So I would say DLC 2 and Neo 1.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember what are the enemies that were introduced. I think
Okay. In
Namahage was introduced in DLC 1
yes,
for Neo 1.
yes,
Is that
DLC.
true?
Yeah, that's true. That's correct. In
Was
DLC
Magatsu was base game, or was he DLC 3?
DLC 3 is Megatsu,
DLC 3? Okay.
and DLC
Yeah.
2. Hold on, I'm trying to remember.
Is
Okay,
it
Namahage was DLC 1. Magatsu was DLC 3. Okay, Yokai, Kusa Yokai, that guy was in a base game, I believe, as well. Hmm, that's a good question. I can't remember actually what
yeah,
enemies was
I can't
introduced
remember either.
in Nier in a DLC 2 with Sanada. Okay, I'm just going fast through to the maps. Hmm, actually, that's a very good question. Can remember any
Yeah,
enemy, specific enemies there?
yeah, I can't either. I think that's one of the reasons that like this is important. One of the reasons. I think that there are many reasons why Neo 2 is like so sorry, let me preface my remark with this because I don't want there to be a misunderstanding. Neo 1 is a fantastic, excellent game.
Yeah.
It is an excellent game, but Neo 2 to me is just better. It's just a better game on so many dimensions, and one of those dimensions is enemy variety. There's so much enemy variety, especially when you add on the DLC enemies for Neo 2. Like enemy variety in that game is incredible. And I think that's one of the drawbacks of Neo 1, especially yokai enemies. There's not as much variety. So I just think they absolutely nailed it in 2, and that's just one of the reasons that the game is so fun. There's just so many different enemies, they got to be handled differently, and they're fun to fight. I mean, there are a few exceptions to that, like uh, you know, on certain days of the week, I hate fighting Gigi. Like I just literally hate that guy. Um, but I can also appreciate him. Like I just gotta learn. I just gotta get better. But like for the most
Yeah.
part, like all the enemies are just a blast to fight, a blast to face in combat. So that's one of the reasons that I think Neo 2 is just an improvement on an already fantastic, excellent game.
Yeah, and then if I
I'm
mean, of
just
course,
gushing over here. I'm just gushing about Neo 2, but whatever. That's
yeah.
what this podcast is about.
And tell me one more thing that I'm curious
Sure.
about. Like, if they, I mean, that's a obvious answer on that question. Like, you would like probably to see Neo 3, but what would you like to see different in Neo 3? And do you think they have enough, so to say, material to make Neo 3? And should they do it?
Absolutely, they should do it. I want more weapons. I just think that was the primary, the main factor that just kept me coming back and back to this game was the weapons, the complexity, the customization that you have for the weapons, all of the active skills. Um, I want to see more weapons in Neo 3, and like obviously new enemies, more enemies, and like for me that formula is enough. Like I will spend thousands of more hours in the game if
Yeah,
those two things are there. And I know this is a request, and it's difficult, but absolutely you cannot patch out item cancels. Like item cancels in Neo 2 are so much fun. Like if that were gone from the game,
yeah,
there are hundreds of hours that I put into it that would just be subtracted. Like don't take that away. Keep the jank in Neo 3. Like keep all of the jank, including item cancels and all this weird stuff that we've been talking about. I want to see that in Neo 3. It's part of what makes the game special. Like to me, when Ronin was released and people were discovering all the weird tech and the weird jank with the weapons, that was fun and exciting. And then they patched it out and it just killed. It was just a buzzkill, man. It sucked
yeah, yeah,
hardcore.
yeah.
So like I fear a Neo 3 where it's released and it's got all of these like unintended nuances to combat like Neo 2 does, and then they patch it out. It would, man, that would be bad. Don't do that.
Yeah, I think they will
Don't
not
patch
probably.
out fun things.
Uh,
Only patch out things that like break the game, or
yeah.
patch out things that BSG really likes. If BSG really likes it, then patch it out because we don't want that dude to have fun.
That was a good one. That was a good one. Okay. So I would say, like, I mean, watching all the games they released until now, even Rise of the Ronin and the weapons in Rise of the Ronin, all these stances and different skills, they have a lot of material to add. But we are yet about to see and hear because there was nothing on the Tokyo show this year from them. They haven't said and they haven't announced anything. Koei was announcing Dynasty Warrior. I don't even know what part it is, but I'm not a big fan of that game.
Dynasty Warriors 37 or something. I have no
Yeah,
idea.
yeah. I mean, just they milking that franchise for no reason. I don't understand why. I mean, I can understand from one perspective that's money, but again, I don't know. But I truly hope so
Yeah,
that we are going to see something in the near
I
future.
would really like, just from Koei Tecmo and from Team Ninja specifically, I we need some transparency. Like I do not understand why there's been neither a denial nor an affirmation of DLC for Rise of the Ronin. Like, I like Rise of the Ronin. I think that it's a good game. It's not as good as Nioh 2. And in many ways, the combat is not as good as SOP, even though I think the combats are very, very different. But I liked it. I enjoyed the game. I thought there was a lot there that was really good that they could work on and improve in the DLCs. And the fact that it's just
Nobody
been
know.
radio silence, um, is disheartening and discouraging. So I really hope for the future, the future games, whether it happens with Ronin or not, I hope future Team Ninja games that there is just more transparency to their fans so they know what to expect and they're not getting disappointed, because I'm very disappointed that there isn't DLC for Ronin. And seemingly there is not going to be DLC for Ronin, and perhaps maybe more disappointed that Team Ninja just wasn't transparent about that. But I don't know, maybe that's like a Sony thing. Like, maybe Sony is the one that we should be holding responsible for this, um, and not Team Ninja specifically. I don't
That's
know.
a
I don't know the subtleties of this, but transparency, I think that's important, and I hope to see it from them in the future.
Yeah, I agree. I agree absolutely with you on that part, and I'm also quite disappointed because there is no transparency and we don't know what is going on. I mean, I can just guess that because the game did not sell enough copies, they probably didn't get into developing DLC. And I mean, it's a money crisis in a whole world, and probably they cannot spare some money for that. Unfortunately, yeah, it seems like, as I said in previous podcasts, seems like the graphics sell in games rather than anything else, and maybe they should actually work more on graphics than anything else, and that game would be
No,
fine.
don't
But
do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't work more on graphics. I don't care about graphics.
I
Like,
know, man. But I'm just saying, like,
like,
what the majority of people was looking for.
yeah, I know. I mean, I'm saying this as, my aim, my goal here is not like making money, is not profit. And that's what Sony's goal is. That's what Koei Tecmo's goal is. And ultimately, that's what Team Ninja's goal is to make money. But man, you can make money creating a game like Neo. Like, Neo 3 is going to make you money because there is like such a strong fan base for the game, and you don't need Black Myth Wukong graphics in order to like sell millions of copies. Um, you
True.
need you need strong, fun, deep gameplay, and you need post-release support. You need DLCs bringing people back. Like,
Trent.
it was the DLCs in part that sold Neo 2 to me. The fact that there are the DLCs after the base game, like, that's part of why I originally picked the game up, is because there was three plain DLCs, two had been released, and a third one was on the way. Like, I understand that maybe it's not financially viable for them to take that route now with Ronin because it just didn't sell enough when the base game was released. But I just don't think that you need super pretty graphics to sell millions of copies. I
That's
think
true.
you need you need what they gave us in Neo 2. And it's because of Neo 1 that Neo 2 did so well. Like, that's just, I think, manifestly true. They created fans with Neo 1 and they released Neo 2, and they just gave those fans more, and it was just better. And I think the same thing is true of 3. You can basically just chain those things together. Like, Neo 3 is going to sell even better than Neo 2 because of Neo 2.
Yeah, that's true.
So
That's
anyway,
true.
that's what I hope. Like, I hope that they don't go the route of let's make pretty graphics, and like anemic mid gameplay. That's Black Myth Wukong, in my opinion. Like, presentation is super nice, super pretty, but the combat is mid. The combat is anemic. Um, I want Team Ninja to remain kind of niche and fringe, and they can still sell millions of copies. And they can remain niche and fringe by making Neo 3, and they will sell millions of copies of that game. I fully believe that.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And yet, unfortunately, we gotta get to the end of this podcast. It was actually quite fun, I would say, and I think we've been going
Great.
over
Glad.
40 minutes. It's crazy, but as I said, like
I'm a
I'm
talker,
really
man. I'm a
happy.
talker.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really happy actually that you had time to make this podcast with me, and I would like to thank you once again very much for joining me here. And of course, I would like to talk with you in some of the future podcasts about the other games because, as we know, there are many other games from Team Ninja that we can talk about.
Sounds great. Thanks for having me on, Zlad.
Yeah, and okay, so guys, that was yet another episode, and I'll see you in the next one.